I will never forget that night. The wind refused to blow, the crickets refused to sing, and Mama Grace's voice echoed through the trees long after she was gone. I saw Sister Eno dig herself out of her own grave that night, her eyes glowing like burnt charcoal, mouth dripping golden honey. She had been buried 3 days earlier. People said I was mad. That grief was eating my senses. But I know what I saw, and that's why I'm writing this. If you're reading, listen to me well. The honey of heaven is not from heaven at all. It comes from a place deeper than the grave, where even spirits tremble. Mama Grace was a woman of God. That's what she called herself. Her robes were white like morning clouds. Her voice sweeter than music. People came from every corner of the land just to taste her miracle honey. A thick, golden syrup, she said, came from a divine dream. She called it Oyin Orun, the honey of heaven. 1 spoon could heal the blind, make the lame walk, even bring barren women to motherhood. That's what they believed. That's what I believed at first. But now I know the truth. The honey wasn't healing. It was preparing us for something, feeding something older than time. Sister Eno was the first to rise, but she won't be the last. I'm telling this story because I am the last one alive who has not yet tasted that honey. My name is Adazi, Mama Grace's niece. And this is the story of how the woman I called Mama almost sold our entire village to death. Mama Grace was not always a prophetess. Long before the white robes, she sold a kara by the roadside. Her stall was small but full of laughter and spicy smoke. She had a rough tongue and a heavy cane for stubborn children. People feared her, yes, but they also loved her. She helped the widows. She gave food to beggars. Her hands were always busy, cooking, healing, praying. But everything changed after she fell sick one rainy season. She said it was a death sleep, that her spirit had crossed the bridge of fire and sat with angels under a tree that dripped golden nectar. She said the angels gave her a gift, a recipe, and told her to bring healing to the land. When she woke, her eyes were brighter, her voice deeper, and her akara stall turned into a church. We called it House of Honey and Fire. People stopped going to the clinic. They stopped visiting native doctors. They sold goats, land, and gold just to buy 1 bottle of her honey of heaven. She said it was made from 7 holy herbs, 1 for each day of the creation, and inside each bottle was a drop of God's own breath. She healed people. That part is true. I saw it with my own eyes. A woman with cancer coughed it out like phlegm. A blind boy looked straight into the sun and laughed. That honey, it worked. But Mama began to change. She no longer laughed. She stopped eating food. Every night I'd hear her humming strange songs in a language that even the elders didn't know. And sometimes she'd speak to the honey jars as if they could hear. The first death was quiet. It was Brother Ifenye, the local mechanic. Big man, strong voice, heart full of jokes. He came to the church limping with a wound on his leg that had turned black like burnt yam. Mama Grace gave him 3 spoonfuls of honey and said, "By sunrise, you shall leap like a deer." He leapt. Oh yes, he did. The next morning, he danced outside the church with his crutches flying through the air. Everyone clapped and cried. He said his body felt like it was made of feathers. But that same night, his wife screamed so loud that even dogs stopped barking. I was the first to arrive. His eyes were wide open, his mouth too, like he died mid-sentence. But the worst part, his skin was shining, slick with golden syrup, as if his blood had turned to honey. Mama Grace said it was a spiritual overflow. She said the healing had been too much for his body. She called it a holy death, a reward, not a punishment. She buried him behind the church, not in the town cemetery. She said angels would carry his soul straight to the throne of heaven. People believed her. Some even begged to be given the same dose Brother Ifeni got. I felt cold in my bones that day. Something in my spirit pulled back, but I stayed silent. She was Mama. She raised me. I owed her everything. Who was I to speak? But death, as you know, doesn't end with one body. It comes like rain. First one drop, then a storm. The honey bottles came in weekly, always sealed, always glowing. Mama Grace said she alone could bless them. She never let anyone touch her brewing pot, not even me. It stood at the back of the compound, under a log shed that smelled of bitter roots and smoke. I once peeked through the keyhole and saw something thick, bubbling, and red. Not gold, but I told myself it was the herbs, only the herbs. The more people died, the more the honey sold. They said those deaths were signs of divine selection, that the heaven was collecting its chosen ones. Women began singing songs about it. Take us to, Lord, feed us with honey of heaven. Every death was followed by a testimony. My cancer is gone. My son is now walking. My crops have multiplied. Even the Oba sent messengers to request a dozen jars, but I saw the shadows in their eyes. I saw their gums bleeding, their skin becoming too smooth, too golden. Their breath smelled sweet, unnaturally sweet, like fruit rotting in the sun. One day, while helping Mama Grace load honey jars into a visitor's car, one of them slipped and broke. I bent down to clean it. My hand touched the honey, thick like hot oil, yet cold to the touch. A sharp pain ran up my fingers. I screamed. Mama Grace snatched my hand and dipped it in a basin of salt water, muttering, "You must not be marked." Not yet. I didn't ask her what she meant, but that night I began to dream of bees, thousands of them, crawling into my ears, my nose, my mouth, and whispering, "Feed us." Sister Eno was buried on a Wednesday. She had no family, no husband, no children, just the church. She cleaned the altar, sang the loudest, and never missed a single prayer meeting. When her lungs began to rot, Mama Grace gave her honey. She shall not die, Mama declared. But 3 days later, she did. Her body was swollen and her skin sticky with honey. The undertaker said he had never seen anything like it. Her blood had congealed into something golden, like candle wax. But Mama said it was the sign of a heavenly calling. The burial was rushed. No autopsy, no crying, just singing and white cloth. That night, I couldn't sleep. I heard humming. It sounded like Eno's voice. I followed the sound through the compound, through the trees behind the church, right to her grave. The soil had cracked open, and there she stood, naked, glowing, smiling, her lips dripping honey like tears. Her eyes were empty sockets, but they turned and looked at me. "Feed me," she said. I screamed. The next morning, the grave was covered again. No sign of movement, no footprints. Mama Grace told me I was dreaming. That grief was clouding my heart. She held my face and prayed for me, hard, shaking, sweating. But as she held me, I smelled it on her skin. Not perfume, not sweat, but rot. Sweet rot, like something dead, trying to pretend it was still alive. I began to fear her that day, and I began to watch. After Sister Eno's return, something changed in the air. It became heavier, sweeter, but not in a good way. Like the smell before rain, only thicker, like something crawling beneath your skin. The walls of our house began to hum. At first I thought it was in my mind, But one morning, as I pressed my ear to the church wall behind the altar, I heard it clearly, buzzing, low and angry, like bees talking to themselves. The sound came and went with the wind. When I told Mama Grace, she said, "Ah, it is the angels visiting. They come like bees, busy, working, holy. But angels don't make nests inside walls. They don't sting in the dark. They don't fly around your bed when you sleep." That week, I started waking with little welts on my arms, tiny stings that turned red, then dark. I wore long sleeves. I stopped sleeping in my room. Still, they came. One night, I caught one, a bee, but it was unlike any bee I had seen in school books or farms. It was black, pitch black, and its wings had golden dust, like it had dipped itself in Mama Grace's honey. I crushed it in my Bible. The next morning, the pages where it died were soaked in honey. And Mama Grace didn't speak to me all day. One evening, just before the Harmattan winds began, a strange man arrived at the church gate. He wore a brown agbada, thick and old, like it had been passed through generations. His face was lined like dried wood, and his walking stick was carved with symbols I couldn't understand. Mama Grace didn't welcome him. She stood at the door with her cane and said, "Go back to the river you crawled from. There's no room for doubters here." The man just smiled. "I came for the girl," he said, looking straight at me. "The one who has not yet tasted the honey." I froze. Mama Grace turned toward me. Her eyes glowed with something fierce. "She is not ready," she hissed. "She is still under grace." The man nodded. "Then I'll wait. But when the honey calls her, no gate will stop it." He left that night, but I felt his presence long after, in the wind, in my dreams, in the way the honey jar on my table trembled slightly when I walked by. I began to wonder, was this honey truly from heaven? Or was it calling from something else? Something older, something Mama Grace was feeding? The stranger knew. I could see it in his eyes. But Mama Grace didn't want me near him. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. When Mama Grace is afraid, we all should be. It began as a blessing. Every first Sunday of the month, Mama Grace asked for a honey tithe. Not money, not yam, not grain, just one bottle of honey from each family, poured into a sacred pot. She said it was to renew the covenant, to keep the angels sweet. But soon, people who didn't bring the honey started getting sick. One man's skin peeled like he had bathed in fire. A child coughed up bees. Another woman ran mad, screaming about winged under the water. So everyone paid, even the poor, even the sick. And Mama Grace grew stronger. Her voice thundered. Her eyes burned. She could predict things. A storm, a pregnancy, a death. People came from villages far and wide, and the honey pot boiled day and night. I once walked past it in the evening and saw something moving inside. Not a bubble, not a leaf, something living, eyes. I saw eyes just for a second, looking up at me. When I asked Mama Grace what it was, she said, "The angels must be fed." But I started to believe they were not angels at all. Something else lived in that honey, something with a hunger that could not be filled. My cousin Chika was always bold. She called Mama Grace sugar tongue. She joked about the honey being juju with perfume. She never went to church. She never prayed. But her daughter fell ill. A strange illness. Her skin turned yellow. Her hair fell out. She vomited honey. Doctors didn't know what to do. Mama Grace said only the covenant honey could save her. Chika refused. "I will not feed my child poison," she said. 3 days later, her daughter was found floating in the river. We buried her with shaking hands, and that night, Chika came to the church with her head bowed and her hands shaking. She begged Mama Grace for a bottle. Mama smiled, but her eyes didn't. Now you believe, she said. Now you are sweet enough. But after drinking the honey, Chika didn't get healed. She began to waste. Her skin cracked like dry land. She walked on all fours. And one day, she vanished. We found claw marks on the church wall. I cried for Chika. But I also feared her. I feared what she had become. And I feared what Mama Grace had known all along. During one of the midnight prayers, Mama Grace brought out a drum. It wasn't a normal drum. It was made from wood, so dark it looked like shadows, and the top was not leather. It was stretched skin, pale, tight, and glowing slightly like it was covered in thin honey. She said it was a drum of heaven, that each beat called angels to dance. But when she played it, the air trembled, the floor shook, and the walls of the church bled honey. Yes, honey! It leaked from the wooden beams, from the altar, from the mouths of the statues. People clapped and cried, saying, "The spirit has come down." But I saw something else. I saw shadows moving behind Mama Grace, crawling, twisting, old things with too many legs. And I saw the bees, hundreds of them, rising from the drum and flying into people's mouths. After that night, some people were never the same. They stopped eating food. They only drank honey. Their voices changed. Their eyes turned gold. Mama Grace said they were chosen, but I knew they were infected. And the drum, it was not of heaven. It beat like a heart that was waking up. And I knew then the honey was not just feeding something. It was preparing us for it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Don't forget to like, share. Please wait for the next part. Support us by sharing. We bring you meaningful and moral African tales to enjoy. Thank you, Bestie, for support. Stay tuned for the next part of this beautiful story. Thank you, dear.